Okay, continuing the series on what is a real church. Now, I want to remind you, I'm not delivering this series to hurt the church. That isn't my desire. I'm delivering this series in the hope that some of you Christians might be motivated and open your eyes and hearts to the world around you. I started out by talking about just what is the church. And we understand it's a collective body of believers. It also is used to speak of the local church. And then we looked at the importance of money. Money, 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 money. Unfortunately, it is all about money. And I'm going to continue talking about money. I think you'll learn something though. We're gonna not just talk about money, we're gonna morph it into talking about attitude. Okay? I finished the last sermon with asking what's the orientation? Attitude. So let's think about, once upon a time, churches hosted funerals and weddings and social events. Think Little House on the Prairie. And they did it all at no charge to anyone. Didn't matter if you were a Christian or not. Didn't matter if you went to church or not. You might have been a visitor traveling through. Preacher, we're traveling through. We want to get married. Come on by. Once upon a time, churches cared for widows and orphans. Kind of like James wrote in his epistle. Think Little House on the Prairie. If there's a widow, the church made sure she got food. Now, it may not have come through the pastor. It may have come through somebody in the church, but it was the church. The people of the church took care of the widows, unless, of course, she had a family that could take good care of her. Then the church didn't have to worry about it. Same with orphans. You got an Uncle Benny? Go live with your Uncle Benny. Oh, Uncle Benny's an alcoholic who's got no money and doesn't eat good, and you got no other relatives? Come live with me. And that's what many of the people would say. Once upon a time, churches cared for senior citizens in their own homes, even sometimes if they had family. Maybe the kids didn't have enough money to support mom and dad in their house too. Maybe they didn't have room to bring them in theirs and couldn't afford that. Other Christians would help. Once upon a time, churches ran orphanages. Think about Boys Town. Yeah. Very famous. If there wasn't an orphanage nearby, someone in the church would take in the orphan. Or if they had family a long distance away, the church would pay for them to get there. Once upon a time, churches shared their food with those less fortunate. Yeah. If people had enough meat and somebody else didn't have enough, they'd take some over. Vegetables, here, have some. Once upon a time, churches would provide food when somebody was sick. Dad's got to be out in the field working and mom is sick and she can't take care of the whole family. And there were no fast food joints. There were no refrigerators and freezers full of stuff to just pop in the microwave. People in the church would take food over there. Once upon a time, churches shared their food with those less fortunate. Once upon a time, if somebody was in a hospital, Christians would go visit. These days, maybe your pastor will visit once. Now, cut him some slack, people. First off, he's one man. Second, hospitals don't keep people as long these days. It's a different world. But, when the hospital sends somebody home after 2 days, had surgery, and 2 days later they're home, they probably need visits more than when they were in the hospital. Now they don't have any nurses coming in, stopping by their bed. They don't have somebody that can push the button and have somebody there in 30 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever. Once upon a time, Christians went to visit those that were sick. Of course, we don't live in those fairy tale days these days. Social services deals with senior citizens and widows and orphans, and I can tell you our government does a poor job of it. We ought to be ashamed, Christians. Government-funded nursing homes for old people? My goodness. They got more bed sores than they got bed bugs, and they got more bed bugs than they got food. Some of them. And usually the majority of the care is given by somebody who's making minimum wage. They're medical people. And we just dump our old people in there and say, oh, God bless you, take care. And if they're lucky, we go visit once a year, and that's if they're a relative. The way most Christians see things these days is if somebody wants to have money and be well taken care of, they should work for their money. Well, I got news for you. I was one that made a lot of money. And I'll boastfully say, I didn't keep it all for me. I helped others. I spent it on ministry, but I still had a lot of money. What I spent was not significant. It was a lot to most people, and my family would have liked me to have kept more, but we did plenty of fun stuff. And you know what? Through circumstances mostly beyond my control, I lost all of it. All of it. Now, don't you just think some of the rest of those people are in a similar boat as to me? Stop judging them. God didn't say, help the poor and the sick and the widows and orphans if they lost everything they had. He said, help them. He said, give to the poor. Shouldn't we be going back to the old-fashioned way? I'm just asking. Now, some churches do some of that. I don't know of any church that does all of that, at least not very well. Did you realize that food stamps by themselves is not enough to feed the average family? I know a family where dad broke his back, never going to walk again. Mom had to quit her job to take care of dad, and they still got 3 kids. And his disability only pays $1,500 a month, roughly. Now, a family of 5 living on $1,500 a month with a few $100s in food stamps, that ain't enough money, people. Go to a church and ask for help. If you're a member and if you're lucky, they might give you a little help. I've heard pastors I was standing there when the pastor said to a member of their church, well, we'll pay 1 month's utility bill, but that's all. But Pastor, we need to have the car repaired so we can go to work. I'm sorry, we'll pay for the car repair, but we won't pay for both. Utility bill or car repair, you choose. Come on, people. He said that. Even if you're a member, most churches won't help with your utility bill. They'll tell you to go down to social services. There are programs to help you. Winter can be a terrible time for poor folk. Their budget's tight all year long. And come winter, heating just wreaks havoc upon their budget. Even if you're a member, very few churches will help you get a car repaired. Doesn't matter what it is. And these days, cars are essential, people. We all know that. Most of America has one car, and most American families have two. Probably ought to have three if you're poor, because if one breaks down, then you can still go. But how many poor people can afford three, even if they're junkers? And cars these days, you know, if your car is very new at all, you gotta have a degree to fix it. It's hard for the do-it-yourselfer to fix anymore. And somewhere in there, I've morphed into my second point of being hypocrites, why people don't want to come to church. We teach that we're supposed to love one another. We're supposed to love our neighbor as ourselves. We're supposed to, Jesus even said, love your enemy. We're supposed to love like the Good Samaritan. We're supposed to care for each other. But we don't do that so much anymore. At least not much, do we? I mean, Paul said in Philippians 2, verses 1 through 5, I'm just going to give you one of them, but he says, you should consider others more important than yourself. But Pastor Velcro, I really need that new car. What's wrong with your old one? It still runs. The newest vehicle we have here in this house is a 2006 small SUV. There's nothing wrong with it. We have no intention of getting rid of it or replacing it. Why? So we can get the latest and greatest? I'll come back to that. Okay, so what should a church be doing? A real church. My opinion. This is just my opinion. What would be nice for a church to do? I know a church 100 miles away from here that is in constant communication with their city officials. If somebody hasn't shoveled their sidewalk in the winter and they're about to get fined and the city's about to do it, the city calls this church and the church goes over and does it for people. Doesn't say the people have to come to the church, doesn't say the people have to be a member or even ever have attended that church. The church does it for people. In the summer, if you don't mow your yard and it gets too high and neighbors complain, the city can fine you for having an eyesore. They'll come in and they'll mow it for you and they'll charge you. This church will do it for you. In fact, if your fence is falling down, your house is peeling paint, everyone's complaining about your house, the city's getting ready to condemn it. This church will send people over to fix your fence, paint it, paint your house, fix and repair siding, your porch, your railing. They'll even go inside and help fix stuff. They can't do every house, they aren't that big, but they do quite a few. Now, if other churches in that same town started doing that thing, there'd be enough churches to do every house that needed that. And somebody is saying, oh, but those people should be working. You don't know their circumstances. Stop judging them. help people. That's what Christianity is about. It's your attitude of helping others. How about, I know a church that visits the veterans in the VA hospital every week. In fact, in our local VA here in Cheyenne, more than one church is doing that. Now, even if they're only there for, say, 3 hours, I don't know how many churches are doing it here, 2, 3, 4. Wouldn't it be nice if we had 10 or 20 churches doing that at the VA? Because our VA has got long-term care. What about going into a nursing home, senior citizen center? Has your church got senior citizens? Listen, I have limited mobility these days. I'm praying that I can get over it. We don't know what's causing it, so I'm still fighting it. I have to have help. Grocery shopping is a problem. I can do the little stuff. I can't do a big one. And it takes so much more out of you to make 3 trips a week than to make 1. Now, wouldn't it be nice if somebody from a church, not me, I've got my wife and my daughter and my son-in-law, they take care of me, but somebody else that doesn't have anybody, if the church went in and had somebody that took them to the grocery store, pushed the grocery cart around, bent down to get the stuff on the bottom shelf that's hard for older people to get, or people in wheelchairs, reached up to get the stuff way up top that's hard for some people to get, unload the cart onto the conveyor belt, get it, then load it back in and load it in the car and take it home and carry it inside, and then help put it all away in the cupboards. I don't know many churches doing that. I know there's a lot of people that would love to have that done for them. And oh, by the way, if you do that, when you're at their house, would you and while you're listening to them, talking to them, asking them how they're doing, any problems this week, make some mental notes. One of her phones broke, and it's just a cord. If somebody could come fix it, it'd be so nice. One of her kitchen cabinet doors got a broken hinge. Wouldn't it be nice if somebody could come fix it without her or him even asking? Well, I noticed the handrail going up the steps to the porch is bad. You know, come to think of it, I noticed that he didn't do very well on those steps. Maybe we could build him a ramp. Now, wouldn't that be something a church could do? How about just within the church? Forget the whole community. Can I ask just for within the church? How about setting up something like a Big Brother, Big Sister program? You got a single mother with 3 kids. I don't care if she's got a boy, a girl, and something else. She could use a big sister for the girl, a big brother for the boy, and a something else for the other, something else. Listen, single parents wear themselves out just trying to keep up. It'd be nice and it'd be real nice if the 3 big brothers, big sisters would coordinate and take the kids out at the same time. Maybe not to the same place, maybe, I don't know. But to give mom or dad, who's a chance to just be alone for a little while. If you have never had to raise children by yourself, I hear it all the time. All the time. I wish I could just be alone. As one mother wrote in a book, she wasn't a single mother, but she was a stay-at-home mom. She had 2 preschoolers. She said, I can't even get alone in the bathroom. I know a church that passes out free food after church. Actually, I know a couple of them. I think that's the perfect time to do it. And you know what? They don't require you come to the church service. They'll give you the food even if you don't go to church. But they do it right after church. And the two I'm thinking of, they also do it again on Friday. Sunday and Friday. Friday morning, Sunday at noontime, roughly. If your church has a food pantry, which most don't, wouldn't that be a great time? You announce it, you open the doors, you advertise in the neighborhood. The two churches I'm thinking about, they actually put flyers up in the whole area. Wouldn't that be nice if churches would do that? More churches? Yes, there are churches that are doing some of these and other things. Unfortunately, too few. Just changing a little bit, shouldn't the church, it once was the center of society, shouldn't the church be the center of society again? If it were, don't you think society would be a whole lot better off? So, speaking of being the center of society, what we really need to understand is that if we do all those things I've been talking about, we will become the center of society. But what else can we do? Well, once upon a time, I knew a lot of churches that were involved in softball leagues and basketball leagues. They hosted them. They had a ball diamond or a basketball court, and they hosted these leagues. I know one church in a big city back east, and they hosted a basketball league, and they bought the jerseys and all the equipment for every team that was formed that played in their league. Yeah, pretty cool idea. Bowling leagues. What about, I know a motorcycle group that once a year does a maintenance day. And you bring your motorcycle, they got a shop that they use, and they got a whole bunch of lifts. You bring your motorcycle in, and they'll have trained people that will help you do the oil change. You have to bring your own. And they'll give you advice on doing other work. You have to bring your own parts. And you have to do the work. But they're there to help you and advise you. Now, wouldn't it be nice if a church did something like that? I know pastors, I know board members, deacons, elders. Our insurance prohibits that. Find a new insurance company. Sure, it'll cost you more. Spend your money on the society, on the people of your community, instead on a new plane or a fancier baptistry. Oh my goodness. Churches and their baptistries. If you believe in baptism by immersion, seems like there's a contest to have the fanciest paint job money can buy. Listen, the last church that I was a member of, when we wanted to do a baptism, we brought in a horse trough from a field one of the guys had. Or we went and borrowed a baptistry from another church. That's where it pays to have friends in churches. How about if a church brought in not one man to speak on financial advice and counseling, but what if you had once a month multiple people sitting there at the church on Saturday to help people with financial advice? Yeah, there are some laws and you got to be careful in insurance, blah, blah, blah. But the church can offer advice Here's how to run a budget. Here's an approach that works for a lot of people. Here's a guideline to how much money you should spend on rent and how much you should spend on food and where all the rest goes. Here are places you can go to find help. Yeah, Christians, you got to do some legwork. You want to go back to school and get an education? Here are some programs that might help you. Let me see if I can figure out which ones. Come back next month, would you please? And you know what would be really nice? If everyone that came in on that Saturday for advice got a $50 gift card at a local restaurant. Yeah, pay him to come. Wouldn't it just be nice if Christians made themselves available to help others? Well, I'm a mechanic and everyone wants me to do free work. Okay, God bless you. Now use it. But I'm a doctor. I paid a lot of money. I spent half my life. God bless you. Use it. I'm a lawyer. You don't expect me to give my advice away. Yeah, I do. But you don't know how many times Christians come to me. So what? God knows. But I'm a banker. I can't give away money. Why not? No, your bank doesn't pay you a lot, but you should be a very good financial money manager. You ought to have some money available to give away. See, what we take is the selfish, self-centered approach. You know, the American way. Wouldn't it be nice if the low-income people could call the church and ask for help and actually get it? But Pastor Velcro, we don't have a plumber in our church. So what? If somebody doesn't have the money for a plumber and they need a plumber, call a plumber, send the plumber over, ask the plumber for a discount, church can pay. Electrician, carpenter, whatever. You might even need to pick up the cost for materials. Church can pay. I don't care. And somebody says, well, what if they're just trying to get something for nothing? How do we know they really need it? Go look at their house. If their house is not as nice as yours, pay for the repairs. How's that for a guideline? People, listen to me. None of this is going to change if you are waiting for your pastor to do these things. You must get involved. You must begin it. There's an old hymn that says, where he leads me, I will follow. One of the verses says, though none go with me, still I will follow. If not you, who? If not now, when? What's your orientation? What's your attitude?